Hello and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Small Talk with Shibby, my LCS post-game interview content. I'm here with the victorious Dignitas Jungler, eXyu, and I just want to start it off, eXyu. You have been competing against players like Fake God, like Zeyzal in NACL. You've played with Insanity in NACL. Did this game mean a little bit more to you than maybe some of the other games in the prior weeks? Like, was this something that you marked on your calendar? Like, what was the kind of emotions and feeling that you had going into this game?
I mean, for Fake God and like Zeyzal, it's not too big of a deal because I just play against them a lot. But I think definitely playing against former teammates is always fun. There's always a little bit more at stake because like we're still friends and we still talk. So like get a little bit of bragging rights, talk a little smack. So yeah, definitely looking forward to typing in the group chat later from our team back then and throwing a little shade. But
of course, of course, and I have to kind of get into the mind of you guys because obviously Insanity right now has just been, I don't know, you think he's just been picking random on the champions list at this point? I mean, he's trying to make stuff work. He's trying to do something different. What are the comms in the draft room or even in game? Like when you see something like, oh, this guy's picking Garen mid into like Talia, into Varus, that kind of stuff. Like what kind of goes through, if you don't want to reveal too much, like what was like the strategy and what were the comms going into that game? Like, hey, this guy's picking Garen. What do we do?
yeah, I mean, obviously draft the night before we prep our draft and we're kind of like, okay, well he's pulled out Zach, he's pulled out Sion, so let's like kind of think about what we would want to do in these general situations. And then, he pulls out Garen and like I mean, nobody prepped for Garen, but it's kind of just like, okay, let's think about like what does that champ do? Like what can he realistically actually do? And then, kind of play around it. So I think we did a good job with that today.
Yeah, I think you guys really quickly figured out what the weakness was, right? It's like, well, they're playing all these kinds of run at us champions into like on hit Varus, Talia, Renata, this kind of stuff. Realistically, as long as it looked like as Dignitas could range leash them, right? As long as you could keep them at a safe distance, they can actually never get it. It felt like Insanity and the rest of the team just had a horrible time kind of getting in. Was that always the game plan, even when you guys were kind of giving up those early objectives and maybe some of the fights here and there or skirmishes didn't maybe go exactly the way you wanted? Was the overall game plan always, okay, let's keep them at a safe distance, let's just make sure that our Varus can put in the work and all we have to do is just kite away? Like how quick was that for you guys to figure out?
Yeah, I mean, I think we understood that as soon as we saw the draft complete. We were like, hey, like clearly they have to run at us and we have a lot of disengage tools. So in theory it was a pretty easy game. I think definitely some fights, obviously it's not going to be perfect, so it's not going to be perfect front to back all the time. They're going to flank and stuff. It's going to get chaotic, and I think that's where they really thrive. I think they definitely got some fights where it was like different angles or like I'm not perfectly in front or people were out of position. But I think once we got to more late game setups or mid to late game setups where it's like we get all our vision, we play front to back, like it felt really hard for them to win.
Yeah, it kind of felt like a nightmare, right? With them kind of coming into this meat grinder of a composition you guys had. Also, I think you guys like played super well around contesting them in bot lane, using the Talia to the advantage, right? I mean, no, it's really hard to kind of match the roam of Talia unless you're playing like something like TF or something weird like a Nocturne jungle pick. I do want to kind of focus in on you specifically as a jungler. I feel like when the season started and when the weeks have gone by, I feel like you as a jungler have been like kind of super underrated. Comparatively to obviously players like Blabber and all these kind of guys. I think you have just been killing it, right? Even in kind of your losses, you've been somebody that's like super active in the early game, really trying to get stuff done. What is it like, kind of seeing yourself compared against the other junglers, and kind of like, does that ever like get into your head, or is it something like, I just have to focus on my own game, I'm a rookie, like so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing for me this split was like I came into it, I'm like, okay, I am the worst jungler in the league because I'm the
Wow.
newest, and like it was kind of for me, it's just like let's see how far up I can climb this ladder, like so I take down Armao, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty confident against Armao. I would put myself like 7th. I think I'm better than Armao. Then the next on the list is probably Boogie, and I would say
Just beat
I'm
them.
pretty comfortably better than Boogie. And yeah, I'm just gonna slowly climb this ladder. Like I have a lot of respect for the junglers in the league. I talk some smack to contracts, but obviously he got the better end of it, and I do think he's really solid. So, I'm just gonna keep working on myself and try to climb that ladder, and eventually hope to be at the top.
It's perfect mindset. What is it like, kind of playing with Dove and Rich, right? Because obviously Rich was a bring over piece from last year. You got to see him play. And he's just kind of been a monster with having like these 2 Korean solo lanes, right? A very classic kind of imports that we've seen all throughout North America from time to time. What is it like jungling for those kinds of players, right? Are they very kind of, do they know what they want? Are they very, you know, like, hey, I want to do this right now? Or is it more, do they allow you more freedom? Do they kind of allow you to dictate, hey, we're going to dive top wave, or I'm going to gank mid, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that? Like, how does that conversation work with both Dove and Rich and yourself as a jungler?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely varies from. I mean, not all imports are the same, obviously.
Of course,
but
of course.
I think in our specific case, Rich can be demanding when he needs it, but in this meta, it's not really top lane oriented. So he
No.
takes a pretty far, like a big step back, and kind of doesn't really talk too much, just does his laning. With Dove, obviously, there's been some communication issues. If you've watched our games, like we do some very, very stupid stuff together. But the one thing I'm happy about is that like at least we're willing to trust the other person, even if like, you know, obviously it's not a good idea, but we just trust each other, and I think that's good for the future when we eventually do have good ideas and we're on the same page. It'll be really good. But yeah, the language barrier has been tough for sure. They're taking English classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing too much on my end to like learn Korean, but they're learning English, so it'll get better over time.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better to have everybody on the same call, even if it's the wrong one, right? I do want to kind of talk about the jungle champion pool at the moment, because I had a big feeling, or I had like a swing that it was going to change with the new season, but we're still seeing like Malachi Sejuani. I did see some Graves obviously earlier today, but like, do you feel like the jungle meta is a little bit repetitive at the moment? I feel like there's a very solid high trifecta of like, you either play Xin Zhao, you either play Nocturne, you play Vi, and if you don't play those, you kind of just do default back to tank junglers. There's some wiggle room here and there. Like, where do you kind of feel the jungle is, at least competitively, for a player like yourself?
I think the problem with jungle is that in solo queue it's too broken, and in competitive it's
different.
hard to balance. It's just hard to balance whether it's like too broken in solo queue or too broken in competitive, because like if you give them more gold so that they can pick carries, then solo queue junglers will just take over the game because they have money and they have access to influence every lane. But then if you give them no money, which is kind of where it is right now, then in competitive, you would rather just funnel all your money to someone who has more money, so that you just funnel to like a carry, like a mid or an AD, and then you just play a tank, and that's just how it is. So obviously I like carry metas. I've said that multiple times. Like I love playing Graves, Viego, Lee, like all that stuff that's right up my alley. But I think for me, it's been kind of a goal for myself to make sure that I'm solid on these tanks, because all the junglers who play for a long time, who really, you know, are the goats, they can play both styles. And I don't want to be the guy who's like, I'm gonna force a carry jungler in a tank meta and be that guy, you know, because I think that's how you just don't build a good team like that, and I think you won't make it long in the league if you just play like that. So that's what I've been learning.
I think you're 100% on the money, right? You don't want to be the guy that is playing like Nidalee in a Sejuani Maokai meta, or vice versa, right? That's really, really rough. You know, obviously coming into the week 1 and 3, what were some of the biggest things that your team worked on as a whole, right? Like coming in, it's obviously a super week. You can come out of this like 4 and 3, right? If you win everything, right? You can come out of it a lot better than how you started. What were some of the basic things that you kind of were trying to work on in terms of getting your team together, getting it right to kind of compete for this Super League, right? Was it, like you said, working on your synergy, working on the calls that you and Dove made? Was it holistically as a team trying to understand like, what are our win conditions? How do we set up for objectives, that kind of stuff? Or could you kind of walk me through what it was like, you know, coming into this week 1 and 3, just working on some of the stuff that you maybe have been struggling on?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of it is communication. And I think, especially with a team that has language barriers and rookies, like me and Isles are both rookies, and then Tomo is like a one split.
Yeah,
veteran.
he's
not a veteran either, you know? So, like, the 3 people who speak English on the team are all new, and the 2 people who are solo laners who have more experience, they can't speak to us properly. Like, they can't say what they want to say fully.
Yeah.
So, the main thing we've been working on is communication, trying to simplify terms and, like, just make it so we can understand each other in game, because I think individually, like, we don't really have any holes. Like, I think everyone individually is a high tier player. Like, I have no lack of confidence in Dove, no lack of confidence in Rich or Tomo or Isles. Like, all of them, I'm confident could beat their counterparts individually. So it's just about us communicating, getting on the same page, and working as a team.
So when you guys are talking about working on a communication, is it like talking about like, hey, let's dumb down like certain words? Is it creating like, I don't know, protocols, I guess, for like, hey, I want to set up for Dragon a minute before the objective, or I want to set up for Baron now. Let's bait Baron. Let's use Baron as a way to, initiate a team fight. Like, obviously, you can't be saying that. If there's communication problems, you can't go, oh, I want to use Baron to bait a team fight, turn if they come, blah, 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 blah. It's got to be, like, simple, right? So, like, what is that? I know if you don't want to give away too much of, like, the secret sauce or anything like that, but, like, what is the workshop around that? Is it, like, creating simple, quick, like, 2-3 word sentences, or, like, how does that work?
I think a lot of it is, like, the amount of time it takes to communicate something when there's a language barrier is longer. So that was one of the things that I needed to work on personally, because I like to talk a lot, but what happens is, like, I'll come up with plans kind of last minute, and for them to process that is really hard. So it's been a lot of, like, hey, like, try to make your plans earlier, and, like, repeatedly ask, like, do you understand? Like, oh, like, confirm with them that they understood what you said, So I think for the early game and stuff like that, it's a lot smoother now that I'm just, like, constantly checking in, like, hey, like, this is what I'm gonna do. Yeah. Like, I just kind of keep, like, prompting them to respond to me. And then in those situations where it's, like, Baron turns and stuff like that, a lot of it is just, like, you kind of just have to trust their instinct. And, like, I'm trying to communicate with, like, Tomo and Isles, and, like, hope I don't know how much they understand, but hopefully a good amount.
I mean, once they see you turn, right? Once they see the ultimates flying in, it's like, okay, we're turning now. Like, whether I heard it or not. Yeah, I guess it's
like, they're good players. They know, like, they can see in game, like, hey, Sejuani just ulted this guy. Like, we're turning. Or, like, I'll try to ping and stuff, and, like, I think they're getting better at it for sure. Rich's English is better than Dove, but I think Dove is definitely improving a lot, and I've seen him working really hard in English class. So yeah,
I guess sometimes you just kind of have to trust each other, right? Like, they're high level professional players. If they see an ultimate coming out of an enemy, we're not finishing the Baron, right? That's not the call. So I've always kind of, been interested on how, like, different teams kind of tackle the communication issue. Cause, like you said, everybody's different. Some, teams have players that are, like, really good at English, can pick it up super quickly. Other teams have to work on it. So I was always interested in, like, whether it's dumbing down the sentences, or in your case, kind of just sometimes playing off of instinct. I am getting that warning timer. I appreciate it so much. eXyu, do you have any final shout outs to the fans? Anybody that you'd like to special shout out before we end the interview?
Yeah, shout out to my girlfriend. She always comes to my matches, supports me. I have her cat for her. I'm just really appreciative of her support and everything she does for me. And then also shout out to the fans. I think this is the first time in a while I've seen, so much positive feedback about Dignitas, and I'm, like, really happy about that. Happy that people believe in our roster and people believe in me. So yeah, hopefully we keep winning and we don't disappoint you guys.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the video. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, leave a like, comment, do all that jazz. I genuinely try to respond to every single comment I see, because it's always interesting to see the other opinions of people that care about League of Legends esports as much as I do. Obviously, the best way to support me is to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications on my latest uploads. If you want to see more of me and my content, I stream on Twitch 5 days a week. The link will be in the description box below. If you are into short form content, I'm also on TikTok. We talk about LPL, LCK, LEC, all the stuff over there. We talk about roster moves. So if your jam is short form content, head over to TikTok, hit the follow button there. I'm also on Twitter. So all of that stuff will be in the description box below. But other than that, thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you soon.